Morning, church. We are continuing in the book of 2nd John. We're going to be looking at verses 4 through 6. I thought I had more space up here, but I still can't open my Bible here. We're looking at verses 4 through 6 this morning. And this is what God's word says. I rejoice greatly to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as we were commanded by the Father. And now I ask you, dear lady, not as though I were writing you a new commandment, but the one we have had from the beginning, that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk according to his commandments. This is the commandment, just as you have heard from the beginning, so that you should walk in it. You may be seated. In John's second letter to this church, he continues to tell them, and he's trying to help them prepare for any false teaching that's going to come at them. He continues to tell them and brings up themes about walking in love, walking in truth, and he's going to tell the church again how they should live in light of the gospel that they have received. And here in these three verses, I want us to see two responsibilities that the church has. Every member of a local church should be keeping up with these duties. And the first one we're going to see in verse 4. The responsibility that the church has is to pass down the truth to the next generation. And when we read verse 4, it says, I rejoice greatly to find some of your children walking in the truth. There's actually a little bit of a debate whether who John is writing to here. Is this a lady and her children? Or is this just a metaphor for the church, a local church, and he's talking to his members? Well, either way that you cut it, if you think it's a lady and her family or a local church, the meaning is the same. The sentiment, what he wants to tell them is that we have a duty to pass down what has been given to us. And I personally believe it's to a local church, but when we see what John is happy about, when we recognize that he's glad, he's rejoicing that the next generation of the church is walking in truth, that to us should speak to us and tell us that we have a responsibility as well. And that's something that we should desire to experience as well. And we have to ask the question, how does the church get there? How does the church get to the point where the leaders, the previous generation gets to look at their children, gets to look back at the new generation coming up and rejoice in them walking in the truth as well, while they get there through consistent teaching of the commandments of God. Just as John continually refers back to the commandments, the church does the same as well. And when we think about the preaching of God's word, and we teach what is accordance to sound doctrine, as it says in Titus as well. This is our model, what we do in our own homes. When we listen to the preaching every week, the truth, it's entrusted to us. We take it home and we live in it. So that's our first responsibility, to pass down to the next generation. And the second one is to prioritize loving your local church. In verses 5 and 6, John, he's referring back to the commandments of loving one another. This is something that he's done in his gospel. He's done in the first book of John, and he just keeps on doing it. And we have to ask ourselves, well, he just commended them for walking in truth. Why is he reminding them over and over again to love one another? Isn't that something that they've been doing if they're walking in truth? Well, he's trying to put his finger on a special kind of love that the church should have. And when we think about loving other Christians and loving our neighbor, yes, these all are intended, but John and the Bible especially, it wants us to know that there's a special kind of love that we have for our church and the people that we're sitting with in this own room. People next to you, they are a priority when it comes to love. And when we think about John over and over again, why is he telling them to do this? Why is loving one another so important? Well, when we think about the purpose of the book, when he's trying to prepare them for the false teachers to come, when we have this kind of love, it's going to create a bind for everyone in this room. It's going to create a connection where nothing's going to be able to overthrow us. Nothing's going to be able to divide us if we have this love for one another. So when we think about these verses, let's continue to pass down the truth to the next generation, and let's prioritize loving one another. Church, if you're committed to loving this way, lift up your hearts.